Hello, I'm Sarah.
I'm Benita.
And I'm Jesse, and you're listening to The Environmental Game.
On today's episode, we're going to talk about energy regulation in industry. Why should we care about any energy regulation, you may ask? Well, our environment needs us. Fossil fuels are ruining our air and threatening human health. There are many pollutants that harm human health from the emittance of fossil fuels that we need to be aware of. This is why it is important for us to use renewable energy systems. There are many types of renewable energy systems that humans have developed over the years. These systems include windmills, dams, the use of tides, geothermal energy, and fuel cells. The use of these systems is a heavy upfront cost and is estimated to be around $4.5 trillion to convert the entire U.S. grid to 100% renewable energy. But as fossil fuels become more scarce, the use of renewable energy will become cheaper and necessary. The federal government can give out subsidies to the states to encourage good behavior. A subsidy is money given to citizens, industry, businesses, or states by the federal government. The federal government may give out subsidies to encourage the use of renewable energies among the states. The money given to the states may then be used to finance broad ranges of services, including healthcare, education, and social services. From 2016 to 2022, nearly half of the federal energy subsidies were associated with renewable energy. Here are some big words that may come up and their meanings. An electrical grid system sends energy from producers to consumers. It consists of generating stations that produce electricity that flow throughout the U.S. Grid interconnections are land areas of high-voltage electricity systems. They tie a network of local grids together at synchronized frequencies.
Hi, I'm Benita. It's very important for our energy systems to be centered around the same policies. There needs to be some federal control to make sure grid interconnections have the same frequencies in order for networks and local grids to be able to work together. These synchronized systems can emit power where needed and even helps places that demand higher power than what they can currently operate at. This is why it is important, because without federal governments putting policies in place, states would be on their own. If situations were to arise where there is no way to share energy, under the assumption that all states wouldn't have the same policies, they'd be on their own. That's why the FERC, Federal Energy Regulation Commission, is vital. It makes sure that our energy services and transmission services are efficient and set at reasonable prices. It sets standards for voltage frequencies and other requirements. It also makes sure interstate transmission tariffs, taxes, between products are reasonably priced. They have this power under Article 1, Clause 8 of the Constitution, also known as the Commerce Clause, which states that the Congress has regulatory authority over commerce that crosses state boundaries. It is also important to note that this is within itself a market, and the government has some power to overview it. In the beginning, the market was a monopoly. Once it had expanded, so Congress had to set regulations to help consumers. They have helped increase competition and allow small generator entries. They have opened the opportunity for independent generators, which include renewable energy generators. Their involvement has also helped decrease our dependency on foreign nations for oil, gas, and gases, and increase our energy security. They have also pushed for people to move to solar energy by the government. Federal solar tax credits gives people a 30% tax reduction based on what taxpayers pay for installation of solar panels, as well as some other renewable energy resources. This power is given through the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1.
That might not be the whole story. I've done some grueling research, and I think that Host 2 has it all wrong. States have individual needs that need to be met when it comes to energy regulation and industry, and if the federal government is allowed to control all of our energy systems, they won't be able to meet the specific needs of each state. Not only will giving states the power to regulate their own energy help meet individual needs, but also if each state has variations in their regulations, the nation as a whole can see which designs work best for everybody. There's no clear boundary written out between state and federal authority for energy regulation or who should have the power. So we know that the powers should be reserved to the states because of the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, which states the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Relating to the grid system, the federal government already has most of the power to control the grid system. The states just own the private companies which regulate it. It makes sense for the states to retain this power because they're the ones who must hire the workers, provide the funding, and ensure that the system continues to run smoothly. The federal government obviously should have some standards and regulations regarding the system, but each state's going to be in a different place when it comes to funding and resources for it. Also, some states are going to require larger, more extensive, and more expensive grids than other states. The next point is absolute emissions, which are one of the most important factors in determining energy policy. Absolute emissions are the total amount of greenhouse gases that each state emits per year. Every state's going to be in a different place when it comes to energy consumption and emissions, so it wouldn't make sense for the federal government to make regulations for the entire country. For example, Texas is the state with the highest total emissions, and the state with the least emissions is Vermont. So it wouldn't make any sense for these two states to have the same policies regulated by the federal government for their energy.
Now you've all had a chance to hear both sides of the story. Should the national government or state government decide on the issue of who should regulate energy and industry? Who exactly should have control over our country's energy system? Should it be given to the states or federal government? Federalists believe that the national government should have a say due to its involvement in the market system. There also needs to be a general grid interconnection system and not multiple variations of interconnections throughout the states. Anti-federalists believe that the states should have more power regarding control of energy regulation. One example is in emission standards, because all states have different levels of emissions. Also, funding and resources to support the infrastructure are different for every state, as seen with the grid system. Overall, Benita's point about how we need to have an interconnected grid system that follows a general set of rules rather than having different regulations from state to state is overall more effective and efficient. That just about wraps it up for us here for the environmental gang. And on today's episode, we learned that the environment is important and it is necessary for the United States to come together with these complex systems instead of being divided. Thanks for joining us today. Signing off for the environmental gang, I'm Sarah.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Benita.
And remember, don't drink and drive, don't end up in the hospital, and don't end up in jail, but if you do, assert dominance.